This podcast discusses a non-stop, thrilling adventure fantasy series set in the brutal and competitive world of a military college for dragon riders, which includes potential spoilers for all published material. This episode includes elements regarding war, injury, chronic illness, perilous situations, death, and graphic language, including sexually explicit language. Listeners who may be sensitive to these elements, cross the parapet at your own risk and prepare to enter the Wingreaders. Welcome to the Wingreaders, where we deep dive into the Empyrean series chapter by chapter, theorize, and overanalyze. I'm Abby.
I'm John.
And I'm Cassie.
And today we are covering Fourth Wing Chapter 1. Friendly reminder that all published material is fair game, so listen at your own risk because there will be spoilers. Before we get started, I'm going to send it over to our resident scribe, John, to break down the epigraph.
We, of course, have the standard and opening epigraph that sets the stage for everything that is about to come, no matter how tragic, heartbreaking, soul-shattering, or, emotion-draining as it might be. A dragon without its rider is a tragedy. A rider without their dragon is dead. Article 1, Section 1, the Dragon Riders Codex. Literally the first words of the only body of law that governs dragon riders. Your dragon's dead, you're dead too.
I really like that this opening. Now, I don't know if Rebecca has read the Dragon Riders of Pern series, but this phrase, the way that she's constructed it, is exactly the opposite of how it works in those books, where humans can live once their dragon has died. Poorly. But if the human dies, then the dragon also dies. I think this way is a little less human-centric, acknowledges the kind of majesty and persistence of dragons a little bit more. But the way that she's written that is basically exactly the flip of how it may be even the same phrasing, word order flipped as in that series. So I think that's a really nice nod to the canon of dragon fantasy literature.
Because, of course, the dragon is superior.
Oh, absolutely.
If they can eat us in one bite, they are definitely considered superior to us.
All right, now we're going to go over to Cassie to discuss some of the Gaelic pronunciations of names we'll see in this chapter.
So I only found one in this. Well, I guess technically there's two. The first one is the name of the war college itself, which I will not be going with the Gaelic pronunciation for this word because it makes no sense. Because this isn't actually a Gaelic word. It's got Gaelic roots in it. So there are two different pronunciations that I tend to hear people say, which are Basgiath and Basgiath. I originally was leaning towards Basgiath because the I usually makes the E sound in most European languages and root languages. But I've heard Basgiath so many times now that that's probably what I'll end up saying. So those are the two pronunciations that make sense that I expect us to be using. How you would actually say this in Scottish Gaelic would be something along the lines of Basgia. The TH kind of doesn't really make a sound in Scottish Gaelic, so you just drop it entirely. Scottish Gaelic also doesn't really have voiced consonants like a G. So G's, especially after another consonant, tend to be more of a K sound. Obviously, Gaelic starts with a G, and it's more of a soft G, like you would get in the word sugar, which is really hard for English ears to distinguish. So I totally understand if you couldn't tell a difference there. I struggle too, even though I know that it's different. So yeah, and those. Okay, so the two roots there are Bas, which means death, and it's got a little accent on it, which is why I'm dragging the A out a little bit. And then Skia means wing. So basically the war college is called Deathwing, which is a little on the nose, except for it's hidden under this layer of linguistic obfuscation.
Well, I think a lot of these translations are a little on the nose, but I am very excited
They
about
are.
them.
They very much are. Linguistic obfuscation is doing the heavy lifting here. The other one that I caught in this chapter is, I think it's Mira's dragon. No, yes, is Mira? Yeah, because she's talking about the scales in the little armor thing that she made. Her dragon's name is Chenya,
What?
if we're using the Scottish pronunciation. And there's, of course, different. It's not tiny. It's not teeny. It's not whatever the audiobook is saying.
Did you just say Chenya?
I think I've been saying like TNA.
Chenya. And
John's just shaking his head over there.
this one is going to be our classic on the nose dragon name. It means fire.
Oh, okay, okay. Cassie, there is actually one more. We have Mama Sorrengail's dragon.
Oh, right.
And I did look this one up because it was, I always said Aimser, but it looks like it's Omshire.
Omshire? Yeah, S's followed by I are usually a sh sound. I struggle with the AO a few times here and there, but yeah, it's like aim. Wait, no, that one's
See,
AI.
I am used to I'm sir, not aim sir, but I'm sir.
Yeah, it'd be like I'm sheer. That one means climate/weather. So again,
Very appropriate.
very clear. Which there, when we get into some of the later episodes, later chapters, there are definitely some that you're like, wait, this is confusing. Is this a mistake? There are some in the later chapters where you're like, but that dragon name doesn't really make sense, like with the rider's power. Not that they're supposed to be correlated with the rider's power anyway, so sidebar annoyance. But then when we get to Onyx Storm and you're like, oh, that was real
You're kidding
long.
me.
So when we
It's
get
gonna
to
be
I'm
those-
so
Michigan.
excited.
It's gonna be in Michigan.
I'm so excited.
Okay.
I will say that I have a slight gripe with the Gaelic meanings being so connected to signets because we do know that signets come more from the rider than the dragon. So that's a little annoying to me.
Right?
Okay.
Yes, it's one of those, like, it's definitely where you can see the hand of the author rather than feeling like you're in
Absolutely.
the world.
So before we get into the chapter, then let's just dive into this one really quick. Have you
Oh,
heard
no.
the theory that dragons only die when they get killed, and that when Coda is listing out his entire lineage, it's just all of the various names he's taken across the decades.
Do you think they just changed their name for each rider?
And maybe they know the signet before they bond the person, and they know what it's going to be.
Okay, wait.
Maybe they don't choose it, but they know what it's going
I
to be.
have a theory that I thought of right now. So could totally be wrong or not based in anything. But what if, because we know that Tarn is like, you are my last rider, you are it, what if when the rider's signet matches up with their name, that is their last rider?
But so many of them in this book, Matt, like,
I know, but what if this is just like
oh,
it for a lot of dragons?
Versus time.
this is the
Or
last
change,
war.
Chenya.
whatever.
Chenya.
Which is just fire, and that doesn't have
Um,
anything to do with wards, so Chenya might be
Yeah.
fine.
This did make me wonder, because I had this thought about dragons changing their names to match the rider or whatever, and that made me wonder about when they land after the threshing and everything, and they're supposed to,
And they record,
and they record the
their name.
name. Is that like, do the humans know? Like, is there a council of humans that knows all of the dragon names, and they're like, oh, you gave us the right one. Like you're definitely chosen. Or is it more of like if they gave you their name, that's how we prove that you're the rider. But then how do you know that you're not just giving a fake name?
Yeah.
If
Well,
there's
and
no
I mean, when
record
we look at Tarn and his previous writer, I'm pretty sure when they mention, like, oh, Tarn hasn't been seen in 5 years, they're using his name, at least the shortened version of it.
Yeah.
And so that's what I was just about to point out, is that technically Taryn was Taryn when he was bonded to Nolan. Or, yes, Nolan? No, not Nolan. What's the name of the guy
Naolin?
Nowlin?
that tears
Nowlin?
pants
Yeah,
Yeah.
right
it's so similar, right?
Yeah, Nayland.
Naolin, Nowlin.
New Orleans.
Yes. Who still, by the way, is going to be so fucking crucial to the final of the plot. I know he is.
Yeah,
We've been dancing
I'm
around
waiting
this.
for his mystery to resurface and be relevant too.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Okay. Let's not get too far ahead of ourselves, though, because we do have a whole first chapter
Your whole
to
chapter
talk
of
about. Yes, the whole intro of the book before we start really diving into some of those later theories. All right, so jump right in. We are at chapter 1. It is conscription day at Basgiath War College. Violet is carrying her 30-pound bag up 6 flights to Mama Sorrengail's office, and she is struggling. I will probably be referring to General Sorrengail as Mama Sorrengail, as well as Daddy Sorrengail. I have some fun abbreviations for character names in my notes. So that's just what you're getting here. So Violet notes that she has had 6 months of intense physical training with Major Gilstead. And I'm going to circle back to that in just a moment. But we learned that there are thousands of 20-year-olds here to join one of the 4 quadrants. We have our healers, our scribes, our infantry, and our riders. This college trains officers to protect the border from the Paromial Kingdom and their griffins. And we learn that, quote, the weak don't survive here, especially not in the Riders Quadrant. The dragons make sure of that. Violet hears a voice in Mama Sorrengail's office, who she recognizes immediately as Mira, her sister who has been on the border as part of the Eastern Wing and whom Violet hasn't seen for years. Mira, we learn, is 26. She is a younger version of Mama Sorrengail. Tall, strong, powerful muscles, brown eyes, short golden brown hair cut short like Mama Sorrengail. And, quote, she carries the same arrogance as Mama Sorrengail, the unwavering conviction that she belongs in the sky. She is a rider through and through. So Mira is freaking out. She is yelling at Mama Sorrengail to change her mind about forcing Vi into the Riders Quadrant. We hear that Mira is convinced that Violet is being sent to die, that she doesn't stand a chance. Violet, I'm trying to read my notes here. I might need to type them next time because I'm having trouble reading my handwriting. Let's see. I think this says Violet heavy falls over. Opens the heavy door and falls over. Mira is worried and Violet is embarrassed. Mama Sorrengail is described as being famous for her lack of empathy, and this includes to her own children. Violet describes herself as too short, frail. She is wiry. Nope, not wiry. Sorry, curvy is what my notes say instead of muscular, and is made vulnerable by her traitorous body. She has brown hair in her signature long braid, and her brown hair fades into silver. She has pale skin, eyes, and hair. We learn that Mama Sorrengail was sick during her pregnancy with Violet, and she blames the fever for stealing Violet's coloring and strength. So we learn that Daddy Sorrengail was a scribe, and Violet had been training her whole life to be one too. Daddy Sorrengail died more than a year ago when his heart failed. There is a moment when Mama Sorrengail scoffs at Violet. I'm trying to find that.
I feel like she scoffs a couple times.
She does scoff a couple times. I'm trying to find it. I should reread my notes before recording to fix them up a little bit. Okay. Basically, anyways, she has a look of grief at some point when talking about Daddy Sorrengail. It seems to be directed towards Daddy Sorrengail, but we do learn later that Mama Sorrengail her motivation this entire time has been to keep her kids alive. So I'm almost wondering if that look of grief is more of a look of fear or feeling like she failed Violet because Violet is just weaker due to her condition.
Found it. It's like that fever stole all your coloring along with your strength. Grief flashes through her eyes and her brows furrow. I told him not to keep you in that library.
Thank you.
Are we ready to really dive into the fact that spoilers are going to be spoilers?
Yeah, if you want to jump into it, I have some things coming up too that are pretty big spoilers, but you are more than welcome to go ahead.
Right, like this is that pivotal moment where we have the pale skin, pale eyes, pale hair. And she like is so convinced that something happened to her daughter that made her this way. She blames a fever. I think the fever's made up. I don't think the fever ever actually happened.
Okay.
Everyone wants it to be she turned venom, but I'm starting to really wonder if the traits of Violet's life were not something that she went into Dune's temple with, but came out of
That's
Dune's
what I was gonna
temple
say
with.
is the fact that the priestesses all, at least in Navarre, seem to make their hair be white, but on the Isles, on that island, seem to like something about dedication to Dune makes it seem like it turns your hair white. So there's definitely something about this fever being the cause that doesn't add up, especially because they were talking about Violet being only partially dedicated, so her hair is only partially white or silver or
I
whatever.
can see. I definitely agree that the hair, in the very least, is due to her partial dedication to Dune. I am stuck on, though, why would Daddy Sorrengail go to the trouble of taking her there and dedicating her if there wasn't already something quote unquote wrong with
Right.
her? So I do think that the fever would be accurate,
Not
just not necessarily
not the cause of the hair.
for the coloring aspects.
Yeah,
I was
there
gonna say, you
definitely was a
remember
reason
when
that he was trying to dedicate her.
I don't think that she had anything wrong with her. Samira and Brennan both said that the family never thought that there was something wrong with Violet, even after her partial dedication. But that, like, in the letters between the unsent correspondence of Lieutenant or General Violet Sorrengail, we keep seeing these flashes. I think that they're letters that she wrote to her husband after his death in her journal. That's why they're unsent correspondence. And so I think that he had some idea. He knew his daughter needed the blessing of Dune to defeat the Venin. And so I think he knew that Theophany was a prior priestess of Dune, and it would take another potential priestess of Dune to kill her.
Okay.
Because remember, Asher Sorrengail had schemes.
Oh, for sure. Do you have any idea of how he would have potentially come across this knowledge?
So, the first thing that I will say is Asher Sorrengail seems to have an unprecedented ability to get in and out of the country without getting caught. And I doubt he only uses that to go to islands where magic doesn't exist. I have strong suspicion that Asher Sorrengail had been reading Poromish texts along the way as well. He had managed to create some sort of contact within the Poromish whatever and managed to get access to their tomes as well. And there's this one point in Onyx Storm where Violet finds a passage and she's like, third time I found this. And another epigraph that explains that Venom came into a village and decimated it and left 3 survivors. And the only thing that the survivors could say, a man and 2 children, were the woman bore a striking resemblance. It was like she had not aged a day from the day he'd married her 20 years ago.
Yep.
I think that was Theophany.
Okay.
And she didn't kill her love. And so Violet's seeing this and being like, clearly becoming Venom doesn't eliminate what were pre-existing connections and feelings.
Sure.
But I think that Asher Sorrengail read it and went, there's a priestess of Dune. We gotta kill her.
Okay. Interesting thought there. All right, so kind of jumping back in to the fact that Daddy Sorrengail died a little over a year ago. This is where I want to circle back to Violet's been training for 6 months. So if Daddy Sorrengail died over a year ago, why has she only been training 6 months for the Writer's Quadrant? So I am assuming that while he was alive, the plan that he had is I will protect her. I will bring her into the fold when she becomes a scribe. I won't let anything bad happen to her. We do learn in Iron Flame after she escapes from the torture that Varish is doing. Mama Sorrengail tells Violet that she forced her into the Writer's Quadrant because she knows that Markham would make her his protege, Violet would learn the truth and the cover-up and would expose everything and be killed. So, again, assuming that Daddy Sorrengail's plan was to protect Violet in the Scribe Quadrant, and he died over a year ago, why has she only been training for 6 months? I feel like maybe Mama Sorrengail is grieving, but still, it's like your whole thing is the survival of your children. Why are you not being like, okay, Violet, start training with these daggers, start getting on a balance beam, like you need to figure this out. You're going to the Writer's Quadrant.
That's a point. I like
Thank
that
you.
point.
Yeah, at one point she says, I let you finish your scribe tutoring, but surely she could have physically trained too during that time. It didn't have to be mutually exclusive. We can just noodle on that and see if that comes back later.
Don, how capable do you feel like of doing war training right now along your PhD? Does that feel comfortable?
Right?
Okay, fair.
You could make an argument that, because obviously I just made a huge pitch for Daddy Sorrengail's pre-built plans. Like, they had plans for their children. Mm-hmm. And those plans included Brennan. Brennan died.
Died.
Becomes heart-stricken. And like, Daddy Sorrengail goes, and like, so maybe there was a brief 6-month moment where she was deciding whether or not she should put faith in her husband's plans or make her own now that he's gone and can't put them in action.
That's
fair.
kind of what I was wondering. Like, was she investigating if the original plan was still possible or not before being like, hey, Violet, I know that you are a bookworm and all that, but I really need you out here, like, running laps now.
Time to start balancing, girl. Balance.
Okay, so anyways, we learn that writers are at the top of both the social and military hierarchy. Violet says it helps that their bonded dragons roast people for fun. I really like that that little quote. But we do learn that Mama Sorrengail is serious about Violet going to the Writer's Quadrant. She says, if you dare walk into that tunnel toward the Scribe Quadrant today, I will rip you out by that ridiculous braid and put you on the parapet myself. So she means business. Mira argues that Daddy Sorrengail wouldn't want this. She says it's tantamount to a death sentence, but Mama Sorrengail says he's dead, doesn't really matter what he wants. He's gone. At this point, we learn that Violet has broken her arm this year. She sprains a joint every other week, and she is just physically not tall enough to even be able to mount a dragon, according to Mira. And this is our first mention of Violet's condition. While it's not named in the book, it seems to be unique to her, possibly related to Mama Sorrengail's illness or the Dune dedication. Hopefully we'll find out more about that later. But it is based on Rebecca Yarris's hypermobile Ehlers-Danlos syndrome, which is a group of connective tissue disorders. I will be posting a link in the show notes for more information on that if anybody is interested in learning more. But this actually connects to me slightly. So reading this series, I recognized in Violet some issues in my own body that I've experienced for as long as I can remember. Not anywhere as extreme as hers, I will say. But I have had joint issues, especially my knees, my shoulders, my hips, back to preteen years. And it's something that I have gone to the doctor several times about, but have always been dismissed, either being told like, oh, okay, your knees hurt when you hike, just don't hike anymore. Or, okay, well, yeah, we'll get imaging done. Oh, the imaging looks fine. Goodbye. Same with blood work. Blood work for me has always come back fine, and that's kind of been the end of the road of trying to figure things out. So I am actually, because of this series, really doubling down and trying to figure out what is going on with my body. Blood work has once again come back clean, but I have a doctor that I actually feel like is listening to me. So that is just the first step, and there are plans to get more imaging done, to potentially go to rheumatology. I did float the idea to her that I was reading on Ehlers-Danlos, and that could potentially be something, but I know that in a lot of cases they want to rule out like everything else first.
Yeah.
So possibly that is my story. Possibly not, but regardless, I have a lot of love in my heart for this series, just because I'm like, you know what, this thing with my body needs to get figured out. I shouldn't be living in pain. I'm 28 years old. And, this has been a problem since, before I even went through puberty. And I'm tired. I'm tired of just being in pain all the time and my joints clicking and popping and hurting every time I go up a stair, and not being able to go on walks with my children because I'm hobbling down the street. That's not normal. And yeah, so I just wanted to say, in case Rebecca ever listens to this for whatever reason, thank you. Thank you for writing a character that's experiencing this, because it seems relevant maybe to my own body and my own health. So after that personal outpouring there, we can jump back in that Violet is very offended by Mira's assessment of Violet, which this is going to be a theme. She recognizes her own shortcomings, her own limitations, but when anyone else points them out, how fucking dare they? And that's one of my favorite things about her, and something that is after my own heart for sure, because yes, I can say that I can't do something, but don't you fucking dare tell me that I can't do whatever I want. At this point, Mama Sorrengail comes to Violet's defense and says, "So she's small." I snort. "Are we just listing my faults now? I never said it was a fault. Violet deals with more pain before lunch than you do in an entire week. If any of my children is capable of surviving the writer's quadrant, it's her." Which I absolutely love that. Mira responds with, "How many writer candidates die on conscription day, Mom? 40? 50? Are you that eager to bury another child?" And this is too far. Oops, we pressed a big button here. The temperature drops due to Mama Sorrengail. This is our first mention of signets, which is the power that writers get from their dragons. Mama Sorrengail is a storm wielder, which is a connection to theophany, which we obviously don't learn until much later. And we do know that theophany says that Mama Sorrengail's signet is the balance to theophany's own. So theophany definitely comes before Mama Sorrengail. We also learn that Mama Sorrengail's dragon is Amshire, which again means weather, we talked about earlier. And then we learn about Brennan. Brennan hasn't been mentioned in the past 5 years since he and his dragon died in the Tirish Rebellion, and his death seems to have led to Daddy Sorrengail's death as well. That's when his chest pain started. And I wanted to quickly talk about my experience with an accidental spoiler I got before reading Fourth Wing. So one of my friends on Goodreads had posted a spoiler-free review, but in that spoiler-free review, they wrote in all caps, "Wait, he's alive?"
That's not...
And so I knew from the beginning that some male character who is said to be dead is alive. So I was going back and forth between Brennan and Daddy Sorngale from this first chapter. I'm like, well, one of them is alive. Like, one of them is going to be alive. That is the twist at the end. So unfortunately, that was
Oh my God.
that was spoiled for me, even though they were trying not to have a spoiler. But yeah, so from the beginning, I was like, okay, someone here is tricky alive. So after Mama Sorngale's reaction, Violet notes that Mom tolerates me and respects Mira, but she loved Brennan, which hit my heart a little bit. Seems that maybe she got a little harder with each child of protecting herself and trying to protect them. So Mira tries to apologize, but Mama Sorngale is not having it and orders her out. And then Violet is dismissed as well. Oh, no, sorry.
It's a little bit of a pep talk.
Yep, sorry. This is the first time that Violet has been alone with Mama Sorngale in months. We find out that Violet scored in the top quarter for speed and agility for the, what's it called? The test, the entrance exam. Thank you. So Mama Sorngale says she'll be fine. And we know now that at this point, Mama Sorngale has already cashed in her favor with Xaden to keep her alive. So I'm wondering if this is really faith in her daughter, or if this is more like, you're going to be fine because I have someone who's like a badass that will be keeping you alive, whether you like it or not.
It's probably a combination.
With some caveats. She had to make it across the parapet for that deal to get
Yes.
Yeah.
That's fair. That's fair.
But yeah, the fact that she's like, you did score well on these important things, which are also the crucial things for getting across the parapet.
Fair.
She's probably got like a combination of like, I trust you to get there, and then I trust my backup plan if for whatever reason you do, dislocate your arm 5 times.
Absolutely. All right. Mama Sorngale tells Violet that she won't be able to acknowledge her due to rank issues. There will be no special treatment, and she will have a target on her back due to being Mama Sorngale's daughter. Mama Sorngale also says that they won't see each other again until threshing, and then she is dismissed. So Violet walks out. Mira is waiting in the hall and calls Mama Sorngale batshit crazy, which I appreciate. We learn that they only have an hour, so they head to Violet's room. Everything in there is already packed up and had been while she was in Mama Sorngale's office. Mira mentions that she's fucking efficient. I'll give you that. Mira is telling Violet that she thought she could change Mama Sorngale's mind, but obviously she couldn't. And then starts helping Violet like Brennan helped her when she was about to go, which is a theme here. There is a lot of passing on that love and that help, which is so sweet to see. We learned that Violet cannot use... Did I say violent? I think I said violent. Violet can't use swords because they're too heavy, but she is super quick with daggers. What she lacks in strength, she makes up in speed. Okay, so Violet... I love her. I love her so much, and because I love her, I'm going to be ragging on her, and I'm going to be taking her to task, because even though she is so fucking smart, like destined to be a scribe, she's wearing smooth-soled shoes and has 1 million books in her bag. Like, girl, what the fuck are you doing?
She's like, they told me to pack for camp, and this is everything I own.
Yes, I'm
right?
like...
This is
I'm
literally
like,
unpacking my entire room to summer camp.
Ma'am! Like, I understand that you're a book lover. I get it. I am too. But it is between your books and fucking surviving. Like, I am so mad at her. Like, there are some things where I'm like, Violet, you're acting so stupid throughout this book, and this is one of them.
Because ostensibly, she's going to be living inside the same complex within 48 hours.
Yes!
When she has her own room, she can sneak that shit in.
Exactly. I'm like, okay, ma'am, I don't know if this is just like Rebecca being like, see, she really loves books. And I'm just like, she's supposed to be smarter than this, Rebecca. So...
There are so many times throughout the series that I'm like, she's supposed to be smarter than this. I'm like, what is she?
Yes! Thank you! Thank you. We'll get to it. We'll get to it so many times that I'll yell about it every time. So, Mira gives Violet some rubber-soled boots so she doesn't slip off of the fucking parapet. We learned that riders can only take what they can carry. Mira rightfully takes out the books, including Violet's favorite collection of dark fables that Daddy Sorengale gave her.
Of which we only have 2 epigraphs from.
Oh, really? Interesting.
Yeah.
So far.
And they're both at the end of this book.
Okay. Excited to see those. Mira asks if she's willing to die for it. The parapet is 18 inches wide, 200 feet high, and it's about to rain. Her pack is too heavy, and she will die if she falls, and then we'll go on the death roll. So this is our first mention of Venin and Wyvern. Neither Mira nor Violet believe in them. The description we get here is... Mira says, "Is that old book of folklore about dark-wielding vermin and their wyvern?" Violet says...
Vermin.
Yep, they're venin, not vermin. Mira says, "Just don't try to channel power without being a bonded rider, and red-eyed monsters won't hide under your bed waiting to snatch you away on their 2-legged dragons to join their dark army."
Only to find out that being a bonded rider makes channeling from the source even easier.
Mm-hmm.
Exactly. And this is, haha, this is laughed off. This is so silly and funny and certainly is not going to come back. Don't even worry about it.
There's a line right after that where she says, "Ditch the books. Dad can't save you." And I'm like, but he will.
I have that highlighted as well to read.
Technically, Brennan saves her more.
I'm thinking of in, like, Onyx Storm. Like, Brennan does a lot of work getting her through Fourth Wing. But then we get to the back where it's like, he had all these connections, he had all of these backup plans set in place that only Violet could unlock, and that got them through Onyx Storm.
This is fair.
Yep. And then Mira goes on to say, "Decide, Violet. Are you going to die a scribe or live as a writer?" Which I'm like, badass. Love that.
Bitch, ¿por qué no los dos?
Yeah.
Also, one could argue
love it.
that Daddy Sorengale giving his children this book that they clearly all have some familiarity with is like how they realize what the real threat in the series is that everyone else is ignoring. So
Yeah.
he kind of saved.
Because what's that saying? Folklore is how we pass down our history generation by
Mm-hmm.
generation.
Boom. Exactly. So Violet reluctantly chooses to live instead of bringing her books, except for one that is, quote, for killing people. And we don't know what that is at this point. And I was wondering if you remember when you were first reading this, if you had any theories as to what this book was, or if you're just like me and were like, okay, weird, that'll come back later.
I think I said it'll come back later, but I had a sneaking suspicion it was poison.
Mm-hmm.
Because when you're talking about killing people, poison is like 90% of the effective methods.
Mm-hmm. Fair.
I think I was reading this so fast that I was probably like, didn't really think too hard about what it could be. And then as soon as poisons were mentioned, I was like, oh, it's that.
Exactly, yeah. I think I had an inkling that it could be like anatomy. Like, here's where you stab someone. But
yeah, that's also fair.
Yeah, but never really a firm idea there. Anyways.
I'd bet money that she has the anatomy, like the anatomy of the human body memorized.
Oh,
She's
probably.
So good
She's
at
already got to
knowing
know
where
how her own's falling apart and putting back together all the time. That, like,
You're absolutely right. Absolutely.
Yeah.
All right, so then Mira outfits her in all black leathers and a vest corset made from chinya scales. Which, of course, I was saying, I don't even know sometimes how I pronounce things in my head. I think that my brain just like goes static for a little bit, and I just like, yeah, that one. I think that I was saying tiene or tien. I don't know. I have no idea. I couldn't tell you.
Oh, the rest of us just say
heard people
tiny and
say-
say that's good enough.
Tiny? I love it. I love tiny. And I am just wondering, how has this not been done before? How has no one been like, hey, these dragon scales that are like super strong, why don't we make them into armor? And
Well, it sounds like she had to like really convince her dragon to like let her have one.
Well, or like she has to collect the scales over an entire malting season for one vest. So that's one thing, is like it's not like they're very common. And then I also want to point out that like the signet that grows things and shrinks things while being very cool is probably also very rare and not one of the more powerful ones.
Okay, fair.
And so I'm betting money that it's one of those one-offs where like with this one guy around, they could probably make a boatload if they really push the dragons and themselves to collect all the scales, get them shrunk and sewn in. But once that guy's gone, this entire supply chain falls apart.
Fair. And we do learn later that Mira has passed on this idea and that they're working on it. So hopefully we'll see some more of these.
Dragon technology.
Yeah.
Supply chains.
We learned that this little vest hides rib sheaths for daggers, and I have such a hard time picturing what that looks like, so I'm really excited for the TV show to show, because I'm like, I don't know. I'm like, how do you even fit that many? The torso isn't that long.
They've got to be like really short.
They go right here.
See,
okay.
I feel like if you're a very flat-fronted person, like if she's really small, maybe she is, that this works fine. Even my belly is so round that I can't picture like having all these straight knives.
So like take a corset and like cinch your chest up with a corset where it's tight.
It's still curved.
And it will naturally start lifting and flattening, and so you do end up with a lot of room right in this area where you could notch in so that the blades are poking towards the center and that the handles are coming out this way.
Okay.
And even then, you could have them back here, too. It would be awkward, but you could.
I wish everybody could see John's demonstration.
Yeah, I'm not saying it's not possible. I'm just thinking of, like, on my own body, how impractical it would be to have more than, like, a few.
See, and this is, John's got a whole knife fetish thing going on now where I want to start carrying around knives in regular clothing. And so I've been thinking about it, like, where can I hide knives in my own clothing just to, like, have a place, you know what I mean?
I did want to mention on the corset note that they do make sure to put a shirt on before putting a corset on, and I just really appreciated the accuracy of garment wearing, because you don't just go around wearing the corset as your first layer for two reasons. One is that it's going to chafe and rub on you so much. It's going to be uncomfortable. And two, because corsets tend to be harder to wash, or the material isn't going to hold up to washing as well. So having that shirt underneath not only helps keep you more comfortable, but then it soaks up all your oils and stuff. So then you can wash the shirt. You don't have to worry about the corset.
Well, and especially since Mira's like, wear this 24/7. Like, do not take this off. You will be stabbed. So Violet mentions that she currently has 4 daggers. Mira tells her that she will earn more. And so she has her rib sheath plus her thigh sheaths. And she mentions that she looks like a writer, but feels like a scribe still.
She also mentions putting one in her boot later.
Yes, she puts one of them in her right boot. I don't know when that happens, because I don't think it says it right here. We just learned that later.
Yeah.
Mira discards half of the pack, including all of the sentimental things. Which I'm like, again, Violet, come on, why are you doing that? While she is repacking, she is word vomiting survival advice before braiding Violet's hair into a crown. I don't remember who posted this video. Now that we're doing a podcast, I'm going to be a little bit more responsible with like noting creators. But this was a while ago. I remember watching a video of someone putting their hair in that hairstyle and seeing like how would this actually hold up. And it does hold up surprisingly well. So
I've done this with my hair. There's 2 different ways you can do it. And I'm not entirely sure which one she's doing it in this scene. This one kind of sounds like she's doing a crown French braid, which is going to be the most secure. But having done that a few times, especially with how long my hair is, takes forever. it would take up most of their packing time in this hour that they have remaining to do that. Maybe Violet's hair is not close to as long as mine, and so she doesn't have to go around as many times. The other way that's less secure and would require bobby pins is you just do a regular braid, wrap it around, and pin it in place. And that's going to be fairly secure depending on your bobby pin skill, but not as secure as the full-on French braid. But also way faster.
I think it probably is the French braid, just because
Pulling her head back and all that.
her hair is already in the braid. Yeah, she already has her hair in a braid, and then like I feel like that would be just an easy like, okay, let me wind it, but she is being sat down between Mira's knees to get her hair braided. At that point, we find out that Mira had a rider whose signet is size manipulation to help with the armor. I have a little pink sticky note every time a signet is mentioned that we don't already know of a Venin who has that signet, because I'm just like, let's just see if this comes into play. We'll see if there is a balance in the future of a size manipulator, and then followed by a straight up dick joke, which I just enjoyed that.
Which is where my brain took it immediately. Is that sounds like the best Manda date ever. When you want it big, it's big. When you want it small, it's small. It'll be the whatever size you want.
I'm wondering about the logistics though. Like, does it scale up, or can you like control different dimensions independently?
Like girth versus length.
I would wonder that as well.
Yeah, I would
but
imagine
way, it's dick du jour.
It's 3-dimensional. You can drag it from the corner, you can drag it from the top or the side, like whatever you want to do. Anyways, okay. We learned that Violet has had 2 previous partners, and we know now who at least one of those people are. Mr. Heir to the Throne.
She's got a thing for power.
Oh, absolutely. So then we get a comment on Violet's hair length. We learned that long hair is a liability both in fighting and as a target due to the fact that it goes silver. Violet refuses to cut it because it's healthy, unlike the rest of her, and her hair does the fade regardless of the length, which is
interesting.
A magic aspect of the hair that we learn is tied to being dedicated to Dune.
The gods be having their own ways here.
Oh yeah. Miri says Violet is the smartest woman she knows, which I want to point out. I'm like, okay, is she like, you're not the smartest person I know because Daddy Swearingale is smarter? Probably not very important, but I was like, the smartest woman? Okay, not the smartest person. We see you. We see him.
Maybe it was just a side dig calling all men stupid.
Fair. Yeah, it could be the opposite way there. She says that Violet needs to outsmart everyone because her brain is her best weapon and she needs to be observant. At this point, we are introduced to the Codex for the first time, which is the writer's rulebook. It is shorter than others and supersedes Basgiath's rules.
My entire epigraph introduction was the first entry of, this is the legal document that matters more than any other. The Dragon Rider's Codex basically controls the rest of the nation.
Yes. Okay, aside from the epigraph, this is where we learn, what the Codex is, not just a quote from it. Sorry, I apologize. Please forgive me. So we learn that riders are allowed to kill others. It doesn't mention it right here, but with a caveat, outside of their squad.
Not their teammates. So how do you cooperate if you're worried that your teammates are also going to stab you in the back?
Yeah.
You have to cooperate to stab the other teams in the back.
Absolutely. We learned that the exception to this killing others at any time is other than when you're sleeping. But then we also learn later on that it's also during formations, but that's not mentioned here, which I'm like, convenient, Violet, that you didn't bring up this other exception. But this will come back. Violet will be attacked while she's sleeping. We learned that it is an executable offense to attack any cadet while sleeping. Mira says yes, but that doesn't mean you're safe at night. And we know that is true because Violet is almost murdered in her sleep.
And you only get in trouble if you get caught.
Yeah. Someone played the laws are only a suggestion game there, where if they don't get caught doing it, no one can prove that they did.
Mm-hmm. We learned that killing is totally cool because there are more potential riders than dragons available to bond, and dragons won't bond weak cadets anyways. And if you are reckless enough to get yourself killed, you shouldn't be bonded anyways. So Mira tells her to keep her daggers and armor on her at all times, even while she's sleeping. Violet worries that the armor is cheating, but Mira says there's no such thing as cheating once you climb the turret. There's only survival and death. So, at that point, we have only 30 minutes left. Violet isn't feeling ready. And Mira commiserates, saying she wasn't either, and she had been training her whole life instead of just 6 months. Violet says, I'm not going to die today, which is her little mantra that we hear frequently throughout the book. They go out to the, what's it called? The grassy fields, I guess it's just what it's called. They go outside. There is a crowd of thousands gathered, candidates with their loved ones. There are tons of horses and carriages, plus empty ones for the bodies. Ominous. Before they get to the courtyard, Mira gives Violet a hug, says, I love you, do not die, and says that she would hate to be an only child. That might actually come later, but she says at some point that she would hate to be an only child, which, little does she know that she wouldn't be even if Violet did die. So, the Riders Quadrant, they have their own building apart for the rest of the War College. Violet calls them pretentious and pretentious egotistical fucks for having their own building. Mira tells Violet to find Dane. And how do we say his last name? Because I always said like Aetos. I don't even know how I say it in my brain.
I just say Atos, like that, like how encyclopedia in Britain is AE.
Okay.
Atos.
So Dane Aetos, who is a year older than Violet, they have been friends their whole life. That seems to Violet like it might go further.
In a later chapter that I know I am responsible for summarizing, she flat out admits that his eyes have played a role in more than one fantasy of hers over the years. She wants this boy. She wants this boy bad.
And I wrote, someone's got a crush. Mira has heard that Dane is doing well and will keep her safe. Mira notices Violet getting bedroom eyes and tells her, don't even think about it. Do not sleep with second years or third years for that matter due to the gossip of sleeping yourself to safety. And I'm like, ma'am, you just said that there's no such thing as cheating once you climb the turret. But I guess, you know.
The rumors, though.
Rumors and, yeah.
Your reputation.
Yeah, whatever.
Reputation matters.
Fair. But she says, feel free to sleep around as often as you want to within your year, because get it while the getting's good. Like you might not survive, so might as well get your rocks off. We learn from Violet that there are 3 ways of entering the service. You can volunteer, you can be forced in as punishment, or you can be conscripted. To attend Basgiath, you have to pass the entry exam, or else you will be fodder for the infantry on the front line. So, am I correct in reading that even to get into the infantry at Basgiath, you need to pass the entry exam, and then there's like a separate, just like worse off foot soldier college somewhere?
No, I think it means that like if you apply, if you're like applying to get into the Dragon Riders Quadrant, you've got to do the tests first. If you don't get through the test, they're like, well, if you still want to be here, you can go be infantry.
And so my understanding is the infantry has got to be a lot like the army here, where if you don't pass the test, you can still get into the infantry. You'll still have a role, but you're never going to be in charge. You're never going to have you're just going to be a normal lieutenant for the rest of your career with the infantry. And they comment later that while Dragon Riders can expect death from the minute they walk into the college, infantry gets annihilated the minute it hits the front lines. It's one of the hardest hit parts of the army, no matter what.
Mm-hmm. And I agree that I think that should be the case, but the text here says The only thing we have in common here at Basgiath is that we passed the entrance exam, both written and an agility test. I still cannot believe I passed, which means at least we won't end up as fodder for the infantry on the front line. So it says that everyone has in common at Basgiath is that they passed the entrance exam, which is better than being fodder for the infantry.
But is Basgiath the war college entirety, or is Basgiath just the dragon school?
Basgiath is the entirety.
The entire war college.
Okay. Yeah. So that is just, yeah. I'm like, okay, is there some people that they just like throw to the front lines? They're like, good luck.
Like, you wanted to be in the military. Here you go.
You're not good enough.
Bye.
For even the infantry. I don't know. It does feel like it should be the infantry is where everyone who can't cut it anywhere else goes.
This is a little confusingly worded.
Yeah, just the way that it's written. It's like everybody here passed the test, which is better than being, quote, fodder for the infantry on the front line. Basgiath is built into the side of the mountain. Majority of the candidates are lining up at the north turret for the infantry. Some are going to the south gate where the healer's entrance is. There is the central tunnel where the scribes are going. And then the southern turret is for the riders, but instead of just going in at the ground level there, they have to climb. The parapet crosses a river-bottomed valley, which separates the main campus from the riders' quadrant, which is higher up. Crossing the parapet is what makes you go from a candidate to a cadet. Violet remarks that she should have been practicing on a balance beam instead of on the scribe written test. And I'm like, ma'am, why have you not been practicing on a balance beam for the last 6 months when you have been training?
I think because she says all these years, I think she means before she officially started training. But I think it's hilarious because it's a total call out to Ryerson House, and the fact that Xaden, not planning to go into the Riders Quadrant when he was a kid, had been playing on a balance beam, but one of the most dangerous balance beams in the country for funsies.
Well, maybe we don't know necessarily, I don't think, but maybe he was planning on being a writer forever, just not having to be forced to be a writer.
I don't know.
I feel like they were in rebellion while he was growing up, so how much of a plan could he have been having?
Well, and then
do we know when the rebellion started?
I'm sure we do, but I don't remember.
It started when he was 14.
When he was 14. Okay, so he had plenty years of life where he probably wasn't thinking of it.
And he confesses to Violet in one of their letters that his dad had always wanted him to go into infantry like he had, because his dad considered riders to be a pompous group of shits. And then he goes, but in all honesty, we are.
Yeah. Yep. So a candidate 2 ahead of Violet has his parents still. The mom is sobbing all over him and has to be pulled away. Mira gives some final parapet advice. It is almost or exactly the same as the advice that Violet gives Sloane in Iron Flame, so I have that marked so I can reference back once we get there to see how exact that this advice is. It is
it's basically word for word.
I love that. I love it.
She basically gives her the Sparks note. Here are the 10 words that will give you all the information in one sentence.
Yep. It's the whole keep your arms out. If you start to slip, let your pack go. Better your pack than you. All very sound advice. Violet starts to panic. She wants to move back in the line, but Mira tells her that she'll only feel more afraid the longer that she waits. She says, cross the parapet before the terror owns you. It is now 8 o'clock. The line starts moving. Roll is being signed. Mira says to forge alliances, but do not make friends, which Violet immediately disregards. Just talking to Rhiannon is how I say it. I don't know if there's a different way to say it.
I think it's just based on your accent.
Yeah, Rhiannon.
Rhiannon.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
I've known both.
Cool. And I shorten her name to Rhi a lot. So, Rhi is in front of her. She is a black woman with an oval face, high cheekbones, and short hair in braids. Violet remarks that she looks like Amari, the queen of the gods. Ahead of Rhiannon is the boy whose mother was sobbing. He is muscular and blonde. Violet sees a guy at the roll-taking desk. He has a shimmering mark that starts at the top of his wrist. We learn that these relics mark all of the separatist/rebellion children, and they were burned onto them by General Melgren's dragon after their parents were executed in front of them. And John is looking very excited. So
I think that's Bodhi.
you think so? I was like, who is this?
So I'm going to say that. I'm going to say I think it's Bodhi, and then I want you to proceed a little bit further, and I'm going to jump in again.
Okay. All right, I'll keep an eye out for you. We do learn that most but not all of the separatist children are from Tirandor. And then I have a quote here. Nothing like punishing the kids to deter more parents from committing treason. And then I noted, but does nothing to deter said kids.
Exactly.
Violet says that the first rule of Basgaeth is to never question the dragons because they tend to cremate anyone they find rude.
As any sentient being has the right to do.
Absolutely, absolutely. So Mira stops in the middle of a sentence because she just remembered the life or death information that she needs to stay away from Xaden Ryerson. I love how this is like such an afterthought, like, oh my god, by the way, like you need to stay away from this guy. He will murder you.
She was
I totally forgot.
Here's all the important stuff, and then she like glances over and sees him and was like, oh, right.
Well, she sees whoever the marked one is at the roll-taking table, but she's like, oh, fuck, yeah, like, this is the most important thing, like, stay away from him. Yeah. Obviously, little do either of them know that that shouldn't be a problem due to Mama Sorrengail being like, hey, remember that favor, protect my daughter. We learned that Xaden is the son of the great betrayer, the guy who led the rebellion.
Love that branding. Fitzgibbon did a great job with that branding.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. We learned that all of the children of the rebellion are conscripted to the Riders' Quadrant as further punishment.
This is where that military service paragraph also confuses me, because at some point they mentioned that only volunteers can enter the Riders' Quadrant.
Except...
It's the first time that rule was ever violated.
Whereas in this other paragraph, it says most are conscripted. So I think that most of the military in general is conscripted. The Riders' Quadrant is volunteer-based, except for these little rebellious kids.
Yes, absolutely agree.
Have been forced into it.
Yep.
And I think conscription partially is just like, they're going to give you the entrance exam. If you don't meet certain qualifications, you can't join certain groups. But at the end of the day, it's more of a, we've conscripted you. You have to pick a branch, but you can choose the Riders, being perfectly aware that that is your choice.
I agree.
But no, there's many comments, because at another point there's a senior official in the Navarian military who comments that he was against it because they've never forced anybody into the Dragon Riders or the Riders Quadrant before, and it should never have happened. He said that like he understands needing to make a message and this, that, and everything else, but forcing people into the Riders Quadrant was never something that was acceptable.
Violet is shocked that they would even allow these people into the Riders Quadrant. We learned that it is as a further punishment. Xaden was the first one. They didn't expect him to survive, but he is now a Wingleader. So there's not much that they can do at this point.
I just think that's
especially
like,
due to the dragon he bonded.
That's so funny. They're like, well, he survived. I guess we'll just promote him a few times.
Well, I mean, dragons talk a little louder than people, so.
And there's also a certain point where, like, when you're that powerful and that capable, if they didn't promote him, it would just cause more of an issue than if they did, I think.
So we learn that Xaden is a third year, which puts him outside of the appropriate fuck pool that Mira was talking about. But we all know that I made John lose it a little bit there. But we all know that
fuck pool, like damn.
But we all know that Violet takes Mira's advice as suggestion. So we'll see how that goes. Mira tells Violet to stay away from him again because he will kill her. She needs to find Dane and he'll put her in his squad and keep her safe. At the roll-taking table, scribe Captain Fitzgibbons recognizes Violet and is concerned, says it's a pity because she had so much promise. And I like the had there, because that could be like you would have had so much promise as a scribe, but I think it's more of you had so much promise and you are going to die. So
Gonna see you
what
later,
a shame.
bye. Yeah.
Yep. The marked rider taking roll, whom John believes is Bodhi, recognizes Mira and gushes. We find out she was given a medal for taking out a battery behind enemy lines, which makes sense once we learn about her signet, which is extending wards. Someone behind her, who we find out is Jack, who from now on I have shortened to
Asshole.
MFJB, which stands for Motherfucking Jack Barlow. He laughs at Violet, saying the wind will blow her off the parapet, but stops laughing when hearing Mira's accolades. Oh my god, I just accidentally erased a whole bunch of my notes. Okay, I fixed it. Mira says, "Don't die, Violet. I'd hate to be an only child," so I did jump the gun there a little bit. As word spreads who Mira is, everyone is impressed, as they rightfully should be. So Rhiannon says, "It's tough to live up to that," before asking if Violet is a Sorngale, as in the general, and Violet confirms. The blonde guy joins the conversation. We learn that there's no railing to these stairs. Last year, 2 people fell and died while going up the stairs, and 1 fell on someone else and killed them at the bottom. And there are 250 stairs. We learn Rhiannon and Dylan's names near the top. Violet acknowledging she's ignoring the friendship advice already, which we love a self-aware queen.
Mm-hmm.
Dylan is stoked. This is his dream come true. Rhiannon as well. She has been wanting this her whole life. Violet realizes, yeah, they would be stoked because the Writers' Quadrant only takes volunteers, which we mentioned before, except for the marked ones, which isn't mentioned here, but we also know. Dylan's parents don't approve, but Rhiannon's are supportive. She has always wanted it and has a pregnant twin for them to dote on and focus on back home. Rhiannon assumes that Violet jumped at the first chance to sign up, but she admits that she was voluntold. And I have a small question for you guys. Is that part of your vernacular, voluntold, or is that a military thing? Because I recognize it a lot from my husband's time in the Navy.
Heard and used it before.
Oh no, I'm used to voluntold.
I'm sure they're
because that is a big military thing. Anytime that there was something they needed a body for, it was, hey, will you do this? And if they said no, then it was like, okay, then we're going to volunteer someone to do it. So they looked for volunteers first, but I remember that being a very common phrase. Anyways, motherfucking Jack Barlow is red and sweaty towards the top of the stairs. Violet feels petty about it. And then we learn that writers get better perks. They get better pay, which is interesting because we never discuss pay
ever at
after
all.
this. It feels like no money exchanging hands, but okay, well, there is some sort of pay system here.
To John's and my dismay.
Until they get to the Isles, and then it's all gemstones. Have gemstones talk.
Yep. You're right. They do have a uniform leniency, whatever goes, as long as it's black, and they are allowed to marry right out of graduation, which I find interesting that even once they get into the service, marriage seems to be restricted for the other branches, which it's
why?
Interesting to me. Yeah. Violet thinks that this has something to do with continuing the bloodlines because most writers are legacies, or because they tend to die sooner. So might as well let them get married before they pass. So Dylan confidently announces that he's not dying, and I wrote womp womp.
You're dying.
Womp womp.
Because
Rip Dylan.
Rip Dylan. And he's planning to propose after he graduates. They didn't want to do that beforehand because they said it would be bad luck. And I wrote, maybe he would have actually had better luck if he did propose LMAO.
I was going to say, it's also bad luck being the character who is so sure they're not going to die because they're going to marry their sweetheart in the first chapter.
Womp womp.
Womp womp. Motherfucking Jack Barlow, he's still in his bullshit about Violet's size, and at this point, I want to ask if we think that he's already a Venin. I think John is in the camp of yes, but he's like such a fucking asshole for literally no reason, and he was like super bloodlusty, so I just wanted to hear your guys' thoughts.
I was kind of feeling like maybe he is. I don't know. I could go either way on this.
He's the child of
Like,
a major
I do think
Venin.
a lot of that.
This kid knows how to channel.
I don't remember about what? He's a child of.
He's Berwyn's son.
Possibly.
Are we talking literal son or are we talking?
I think literal son. I think he's of the same bloodline as Berwyn.
And yeah, that's where it gets a little tricky there, because we do know that they use familial language regardless of bloodlines, but I do think that would be an interesting twist if it was no, truly that is his son. But do we know if Venin like can have kids? Is that like ever brought up at all? Do we know if they can even reproduce?
Xaden and Violet are about to find out, potentially.
Well, unless she was already pregnant beforehand.
Also true. Also true. I mean, he's been... Anyway. I think it's a definite possibility, but we don't get any, like, anything about his eyes or anything that's, like, supernatural. Just him being...
Yeah, but we do know from Xaden's journey that his eyes don't stay red as long as he's not, you know, until he gets to... What is it? An initiate?
ASIM.
ASIM, thank you. Once he gets to that point, they don't stay red. So
it's just hard to say. He doesn't do anything that like specifically says he could be, but it would be like, I don't know, pretty strategic to like sneak Venin in early on. So
absolutely.
That also makes it easier than he doesn't have to.
I think that they're sneaking Venin in.
That probably seems easier than getting them in and then turning, like having to convince people to turn.
Yeah. Especially because we find out that they have to kind of be taught to channel a lot of the time. So Rhiannon tells Jack to shut up as they get to the top of the turret. Violet sees that the rain is coming and asks Rhiannon to switch left boots. We find out that Rhys are smooth. They're not quite the same size, but close enough. And I have a note here. How has Rhiannon been wanting this her whole life, yet came to the parapet with smooth shoes? Come on, girl. Like, so many people.
Well, but shoes are expensive, probably.
And, like,
you show up with what you've
given
got.
the technology, it could be such a thing that, like, a smooth sole is all you can normally find outside of rider provisions.
Okay.
Because...
Fair.
And so, like, I hear what you're saying, but part of me wants to go back to earlier in the chapter when we find out that she's literally putting on rider's boots.
That is fair.
And so...
But it does seem like Mira is a little like, you're wearing smooth soles. What are you doing? Like, I don't know. I can see it either way.
Yeah.
So it is almost Violet's turn, or almost Violet and Rhiannon's turn, so they have to change quick. Motherfucking Jack Barlow shoves her as she is finishing up. He says, some of us have things to do on the other side, and I just wrote Venin things. Because I'm like, what do you mean?
Yeah, you already have plans?
You have plans? What do you mean? Violet takes in the parapet in the ravine, notes that 15% of candidates die trying to cross. The parapet and the other trials are designed to test and prepare the abilities needed to ride. The parapet mimics balancing on the back of a dragon. Despite the odds, candidates either think that it's worth the risk or they're arrogant that they're not going to die. Violet is nauseous, and I snarkily wrote, is she pregnant? Even though I know she's not. It was just the trope of anytime a female character is nauseous, they must be pregnant. There are 3 riders at the top of the turret. One is recording names. One is instructing Dylan, who's about to cross. And then, and I'm going to read a pretty substantial quote here because it's important. It's for research. The third turns in my direction, and my heart simply stops. He's tall, with wind-blown black hair and dark brows. The line of his jaw is strong and covered by warm, tawny skin and dark stubble, and when he folds his arms across his torso, the muscles in his chest and arms ripple, moving in a way that makes me swallow. And his eyes are the shade of gold-flexed onyx. Onyx Storm, anyone? The contrast is startling, jaw-dropping even. Everything about him is. His features are so harsh that they look carved, and yet they're astonishingly perfect, like an artist worked a lifetime sculpting him, and at least a year of that was spent on his mouth. He's the most exquisite man I've ever seen. Even the diagonal scar that bisects his left eyebrow and marks the top corner of his cheek only makes him hotter. Flaming hot. Scorching hot. Gets you into trouble and you like it level of hot. Suddenly, I can't remember exactly why Mira told me not to fuck around outside my year group. At this point, all around the world, panties drop, ovaries explode, then record scratch. This is none other than Shadow Daddy Zayden Ryerson. Of course. Gotta love the will he kill me, will he fuck me dynamic. Living for the danger of it all. Of course, not in my real life, but in the pages of a book, I am all for it.
So I'm going to jump in here really quick.
Please do.
We later find out from Zayden's perspective, or at least from his confessions to Violet, that this was basically a mutual struck by Cupid moment.
Oh,
where
absolutely.
They both saw each other and had their brains go stupid because, well, I knew one thing, but then I saw this. And so I want to call it out here because later in the series, there's this whole Bodhi versus Zayden. I think that both Bodhi and Zayden got hit with the same Cupid love bug during this scene. One at the bottom of the tower, one at the top of the tower.
Okay.
And then Bodhi realized that his basically older brother had the hots for this girl and went, well, fuck, I guess I can't get in the way. And so he's been standing on the sidelines for 3 fucking books, just like watching his older brother go to Pound Town on this lightning girl and obliterate the entire fucking castle, and he has to help carry the fucking armoire out of the room. The level of unrequited love bullshit. I think Zayden finally figures it out in Onyx Storm and was planning on leaving Violet to Bodhi. In a way. He was giving Bodhi permission to take his role.
I don't know if I prescribe to that, but I would love for you to point out any little crumbs that you find as we go along to support this theory. Because I am willing to be swayed. I don't think I believe it right now, but I'm willing to be swayed.
I definitely don't believe it.
You can see it in Bodhi's eyes when he's defending Violet against Theophany at the end of Onyx Storm. And it's like he refuses to leave her on the field to the point that his dragon just snatches him up because you're being stupid, bro. And it's because I'm convinced he's chosen to love her from afar and nothing is going to stop him from protecting her. Or it's like it's his moment to step up and protect her like Zayden always did. Or, like, there's so much that culminates in Onyx Storm that I'm just like, motherfucker, those eyes.
Man, I have such mixed feelings about this. Like, I'm okay with him, I don't know. First of all, what year is Bodhi again?
Bodhi is a second year now, so he is technically a year, he's in the in-between year between Violet and Zayden.
Okay. This is where I'm feeling very Arrow Ace right now. I'm like, why can't people care intensely about their friends?
Oh, I absolutely see
and that's kind of where I'm leaning to.
So there's that piece about Bodhi, this whole Bodhi theory. I also feel that about like this whole description of Zayden. Because like, don't get me wrong, I see hot people. I think they're fun to look at. But I don't go like woozy in the brain. I don't like want to kiss them or anything. I'm just like, I just want to stare at you.
Like aesthetically.
Yes. So I just think that all of this stuff, like once we get to know people, I know I'm on board. But these first scenes where people flash in love with each other, I'm just like, is this even real?
It happens. I go stupid for people all the fucking time, especially straight men.
It's definitely lust, not love.
Mm-hmm.
But
Right.
yeah.
But even, yeah, either way, I don't relate.
Totally fair. Totally fair. Violet finds out that this is Xaden, and then immediately Rhiannon is like, "Hey, Sorengale," and it's like, "Okay, way to blow up my spot, thank you."
Hmm.
Xaden whips his head around, and I wrote "Rutro." um, Violet sees his relic, and then his eyes narrow. He steps towards her, and he is massive, at least 6'4". But Rebecca doesn't say 6'4". She says at least 4 inches over 6 feet, which I just thought was funny. Violet sees his eyes transform to cold, unadulterated hate,
So cool.
and I wrote, or lust, because
Uh-huh.
hate and love are quite similar. Violet is convinced that he's about to toss her off the turret. His jaw flexes twice, and I wrote swoon. And he says that her mom captured and oversaw his dad's execution. Violet shoots back that his father killed Brennan. And she says, "So I figured that we're even." But he does not think so. And then his gaze strokes over her, which I underlined a million times. Very sexual already. Violet stares back defiantly. Rhiannon is like, "What the fuck is going on here?" Xaden asks if they're friends, and Rhiannon says that they just met. Xaden sees the boots are switched, and he starts to relax. He arches his brow and says, "Interesting." Violet asks if he's going to kill her. Right as it starts pouring, there is a scream, and unfortunately, our boy Dylan slips, and he cannot pull himself back up. Mr. Loverboy going to propose to his girlfriend when he graduates. Mr. I am not going to die
Womp
slips
womp.
and falls.
Who could have
Womp
seen that
Womp
coming?
womp. And the sound of his scream disappears as he does. At this point, Violet, in horror, hand clapped over her mouth, looks back towards Xaden, who has not looked away from her. He has kept his eyes on her, and he says, quote, "Why would I waste my energy killing you when the parapet will do it for me?" A wicked smile curves his lips. "Your turn." And that is the end of chapter 1. It was a long one. There is so much information in this chapter. I don't think all of our episodes will go quite this long, hopefully. But yeah, any final thoughts about this chapter?
Yo. It's insane to, like, when you think about these first 3 chapters, when I went to go prep my chapter, I was like, that's how far they've made it? I would have thought for sure we would have been at least up to the next day. And it's like, no, these first 5 chapters cover, like, 5 hours.
Oh, yeah.
It's intense how much happens in 5 fucking hours, man.
Absolutely.
And there's so much
Absolutely.
context for us to catch up on.
I don't know about you guys, but anytime I start a new series, I feel so lost for like I'm not good at jumping into world building. I take like so long to read the first couple chapters until I feel like I can start to actually understand things.
Yeah, I feel a little lost, but like figuring out all the world building as I go along is one of my favorite parts. So I just like accept that I'm going to be lost for a little bit and piece things together as I go. And
Yeah, it's one of those things where you got to push through.
So long as it's not pretentious about, like, you have to already know this particular lore to get this. I'm like, bitch, please. Oh, the paperback for Iron Flame got announced. It's coming on May 20th.
I know, I saw that. It looks so nice.
I'm gonna have to get it, because then I'll have... What did you do to me?
I'm sorry. Just so we're all on the same page, I am a literal book dragon. I have 3 copies as of now of Fourth Wing, and I am going to get the paperback. I haven't gotten it yet. I have only 1 copy of Iron Flame, so I mean, hey, success there. But I do have both special editions of Onyx Storm, the Target, and the original one. So, and I think I'm starting to rub off. I'm starting to rub off at least on John.
Meanwhile, I'm over here like begrudging both of you for getting me started on this series as a hardcover. So now I have to collect the whole thing in hardcover because I will not buy multiple copies of a book. And I prefer paperback.
John is holding up his collection. I only grabbed one copy of each to reference, but I do have mine next to me as well. But yeah, no, I'm a book dragon when it comes to really any book, especially book series that I love. If people could see behind me, I have a million books, and those are just my book of the month books. I have 6 other bookshelves. There are several books that I own multiple copies of, and yeah.
Are there still boxes of books just stacked all over the floor?
A couple. We're working on it. We were initially going to move, so that's why books were being boxed up, but some circumstances changed, and we decided to stay put for the time being, and so those boxes are being unboxed. And yeah, got some new shelves, and I'm working on cataloging everything and organizing, and it's a work in progress. It's a work in progress because I cannot do it while the boys are awake because Noah wants to help, and I love him dearly, but his help is not helping.
Understandable.
Yeah.
And I can imagine just with like how long my book cataloging is going, and I have far fewer than you probably.
I have cataloged, let's see, approximately 3 bookshelves. I think I'm at like 750 books, and that's probably a third of what I have. So, I'll keep updating with my progress and let you know what our final total is.
I'm about half that far. I think I've over 300 for sure, but I can't remember exactly where. And that's excluding the biggest bookshelf. So, and the stuff in the garage, obviously.
Obviously.
I lost track.
Well, that's all from us. Until next week, goodbye.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you so much for listening to this episode of The Wingreaders. You can follow us on Instagram and Blue Sky at The Wingreaders, or you can send us an email at thewingreaders@gmail.com. It would mean the world to us for you to subscribe and rate us on Spotify or Apple Podcasts. The next 2 episodes are up now, and a new episode will come to you every Tuesday. We'll see you in Chapter 2.